is kind of why we book the space.
Okay. Hi, thanks for bearing with us as we're setting up. Yeah, I recorded the last one, so I just thought I'll record this again and hopefully it gets a little bit better every time I do this. So yeah, my name is Tess Paul. I'm an artist. I'm in Vancouver right now. This Adele Campbell is a gallery that I'm at in Whistler, so that's that picture. So yeah, I grew up in Kelowna. My mom was a single mother who made pottery for wineries, and that was her full source of income. So she went to Circle Craft in Vancouver and sold her pottery wholesale. We would pack everything in the van, and on our road trips to see family in Alberta, we'd stop by galleries and she would peddle her wares essentially. And I was helping through all that process as her only daughter. And yeah, I really got to see how an artist would sustain themselves, and she made a great living for us doing that. So just super motivated. It's a hard life, and pottery is really taxing on your body. So she always said she wanted me to do something that wasn't pottery. And she paints now. So that was a move that she wanted to make, just chemicals too with pottery. You're inhaling a lot of dust and stuff. So then I graduated high school and came to Vancouver, and I thought I wanted to go into film. So I did a Bachelor of Fine Arts at UBC. That I learned very quickly. I didn't like to be on set with a bunch of people for 13 hours a day. I'm an introvert by nature, and I'm sure a lot of you are, because that's who tends to make art. So I was I want to be alone in my studio, so I have the energy to be social when I'm in my free time. I don't just want to come home and collapse. So after UBC film, I was trying to figure out how to pivot, and I thought VCAD animation, working alone on a computer, and I liked editing, so I thought that might work. And then I ended up liking the drawing the most, and I've been doing art my whole life, and I thought that would be a better portal into a career. It's very competitive still, animation, even though there's so much film, to get a good job, you're there's no union, I think, for post-production still, so you're just overworked constantly. It's a real grind. And VCAD I would not recommend to anybody, and I'll say that as many times as I can, because it's just it's a private institution, it's for profit, it's very different from a university. I would not go to any of those private ones. They're there to take your money. But I did get proper drawing and stuff. So yeah, I was working just thrift store jobs. I was a server. I worked in a tea shop where I served, just your standard minimum wage jobs after university, and it sucked. And I was trying to figure out, what do I do? My mom is an artist full-time, and she was I know how to I know the groundwork that you need to do that, and I can help you with that. And I thought, okay, it's time to sell out and stop doing my little graphic novels on the side, and just figure out how to make this a career, and where the give and take is in that. And that's a lot of what this presentation is about, so we'll get into that. But selling out, I just want to, it's not I still love what I do, it's great, I wouldn't do anything else, but there is a component, if you want to live in a capitalist society, you have to participate in that setup, basically. So keep your costs low. COVID happened, I got CERB, and I was able to just I was already trying to take off time from my work to get an art career going, and then suddenly I got paid to stay at home, and I thought, oh my God, this is the time. So this is just taking advantage of an opportunity that kind of presented itself. And then right at the end of COVID and CERB, I just cold emailed a few of the kind of main galleries in Vancouver, kind of mid-tier galleries, I suppose. And I got accepted into one, and then it just kind of keeps snowballing from there, and then you get better and you get in another one and you keep adding. And so now I'm at 4 galleries, and that's enough to keep me busy constantly. And then if I ever have a lull, I'll just add another one. So that's kind of the business model a little bit. That's my studio. in East Van. It's really cheap, and it's actually an old funeral home. So like, I haven't seen any ghosts or anything, but
I've asked. I'm like,
yeah.
Walking along, I was like, the ghosts.
Yeah, there's like a hallway where they used to bring like the hearse, or not the hearse, but the coffins down, I guess, and it's cool. I like it there. So yeah, creative process, just to sort of like how I wrap my head around like creating. I think of things in threes. You've got your rule of thirds, and like I think that expands to more than just like composition. How I work, and I'll show you like process pictures, which I think is kind of helpful, but I sketch, there's like, and it just gets more refined, and then you'll hit a point where you've maybe done too much and you got to go back in and like add negative space, or like, so in university when we would write essays, they do thesis and antithesis and then synthesis. So it's just like, you're always like puking your guts out and then like trying to make it make sense and then trying to make it look nice. So, yeah, I was just, one of my favorite podcasts was like often like artists or writers or whoever, like you'll think something's done and you just kind of haven't been hard enough on the work, because like, I don't know, I guess it can go either way, where you could be like a really hard critic on yourself too, but just like your standards, and that is so the difference between like making it and not making it is like, if you think everything you make is good, it's not. Like I had to rip canvases off, like I'm talking about when you have the frame and you staple it on, I would just rip off the canvas like 5 times when I started, like constantly ripping it off just to be like, what am I doing? This looks bad. Like, you just have to be your own like limiter. What are you drawn to and why? So I have like some of the stuff that I like, and I'm a total nerd, and like you would never think like landscape artists from like some of the things I have here, like Bloodborne is like my favorite game ever. I play a lot of Minecraft too, which I like got into it as an adult, and I think what I took away from Minecraft was like, how can you make something look like a bed with like the least amount of information, in this case like pixels, and it's like you have to reduce something to like its most purest form, and I just found that so beautifully done in Minecraft. And I think, so I'm not like necessarily looking at Minecraft and going like, I'm gonna make it look like a Minecraft scene. I'm just going like, that's an interesting technique, and then like taking that kind of back into my practice. So it's just not literal, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Same with Bloodborne. I'm not obviously painting demons, although I would love to. But everything is really like shiny, and like the light is super gorgeous in those games. And same with like Princess Mononoke, like Ghibli films are gorgeous. Serial Experiments Lane, I love anime, and it's just like very creative animation. Like I love the way the shadow is like dappled in those like different colors. And then as far as painting goes, my favorite artist ever is Kim Dorland, and you probably have told him about Kim Dorland.
You can't get through a class without at least some sort of reference to Kim Dorland.
Yeah. He's in every presentation I'll ever do.
But you get to nerd out on Kim too, you got a chance to meet him.
Yeah. Oh my god, yeah, I met him and I was like shaking, I was so nervous. But yeah, he's like why I wanted to paint. I thought painting was kind of boring, and then I saw him painting, I was like, painting can be punk, it's very cool, and that made me want to do it. Yeah, that I find people are good because you're making, insofar as you're making a product that is to sell, people would be really good at telling you that's not pretty, or I wouldn't put that in my home. And it's good to kind of take those factors in and go like, I am making something that I want people to buy. But usually they are very wrong in like what to do. Like, make this tree blue, or like it's always like super wrong. So just like, you know how to do it because you have made your style at that point. And like, it's good though to get like critique from like everybody, because like doctors or like lawyers, they're the ones who have enough money to buy these pieces, right? So it's good to know like what they like. Parameters are your friends. I've always felt like this. Like, as soon as there's limitations, you're gonna try harder to be creative, and you'll probably make something better than you would have made if you had free reign. And like every time I have free reign, I feel like I'll put parameters in, even if it's not a project for school or for a gallery or for whatever. I'll say I'm only doing like a pixel art project with like this much pixels in like each row or something, because like then that makes me work harder at like what I'm trying to do, and it'll look better. So okay, my work. So the red piece is the first piece I ever submitted to a gallery. So when I submitted, I made a portfolio of like 6 pieces, 4 or 6 pieces, and they want to see that you can do like a consistent style and like just what to expect if they take you into their gallery, right? So I think I submitted this red piece and the blue waterfall piece initially, and those just like sold kind of pretty fast, and so that was like a good, like, okay, we're the right fit for this gallery at this point. And my work was really, I mean, I look back on it, it's like there's no blending except for in the background, and like I was trying to use this like big brush that I use a lot now, but I even look at this and I'm like, oh, I didn't know what I was doing, but there is like a charm to it too, of course. And then everything was just like very graphic, I think. And then I had these like kind of wash color backgrounds that were kind of the more painterly aspect to these. Yeah. So then I started like thinking, oh, I want to do something cooler with like blending. So you can see like the reflections in the water are like getting different now. I'm being like more bold with like the big, I use like a 7-inch flat brush to do like the big strokes in the back. And then even like doing something over the front is really risky because we've just done this and we like it, and now we gotta take a risk here and do this brushwork that could look like garbage. But I was feeling more comfortable at that point. So you're just like building your tool belt to get to like the next place. New era, so these are really different, right? Like looking from this to this. I was with the initial gallery I got into for a year, and then painting sales kind of lulled a little bit in the summer, and I was like, what's going on? What do I do? But the nice thing about being your own boss is you can pivot, and I just kind of tried a bunch of different things and kind of loosened the reins on myself a little bit. And we've still got the big brush work in the background, and that started becoming like the spines for the waterfalls is what I kind of called it. So I would do like the yellow background first, and then, well, I guess I did a little bit of this first too. But then I would do these like middle parts of the waterfall, and that would kind of anchor the piece and tell me where I was going. So a less specific kind of like it's less foolproof, but I think the results are better. So again, just getting more confident with everything, and I was getting more confident with acrylics too. I use like Opus grade acrylics. I have like recently dabbled with golden, as I thought like, oh, maybe I should, you know, up the ante a little bit, but I don't find that much difference in the way I work with it. So just use whatever you like.
What scale do you work with?
Oh yeah, I don't have names or sizes. Everything, the smallest is 3x4. So this is 3x4, and this is 40x60. So that, yeah, the standard sizes are 3x4 and then 40x60, and then they'll get as big as 72x48, which is 5x7 or something. I don't know.
72 is 6 feet.
6 feet.
6 feet by 8 feet. Like 6.5. Yeah.
Yeah. So they can get pretty big.
Why is scale important?
Initially, my mom paints really big. She's like abstract, sort of Jackson Pollock, like throws it on the canvas style. And she was like, especially initially, you have to price your work kind of lower so that people, like you're a new artist, like people don't know who you are yet, to make enough to sustain yourself, even if you're like kind of living in a basement suite, like bare bones. You have to sell big work, or you have to sell a ton of small work. Like think about a tattoo artist doing like a big back piece versus like a bunch of little 1-inch sticker pieces, like, and if you, painting wise, if you limit yourself to only doing the big stuff, it's more expensive. Like the startup is more expensive because you have to pay for these canvases, but the ratio of like what you're getting back from the piece is like, you can actually sustain yourself on it. That was kind of the only motivation to paint this big, but then also it's easier too. I mean, it's hard to kind of be all tight and small, so yeah. Yeah, so I'm getting more confident with the brushwork now. It's like all this really tricky blending, and then I did brushwork over top, which like nearly killed me. I was so nervous about it, but went okay. And then this is all just blending. Yeah, and then I got into these like waterfalls, these kind of like ethereal, vibey kind of like mushroomy kind of paintings. They're a little psychedelic, I guess I get called sometimes. And then sort of like, I think at this point I added the Whistler Gallery, and so they're wanting more winter scenes, which I actually love doing, probably the most now. But it's my first sort of like, well, how do I do this waterfall style? And waterfalls really lend themselves to waveforms, and it's really easy to like, kind of, there's a lot of room to do different waveforms and for it to look good. With mountains, like they're a little bit trickier because like, if you just do a bunch of random waves, it's not gonna look like a mountain, right? So there's another sort of like tool in the tool belt that I had to add, but it's makes it fun too. Like you get bored of doing the same thing over and over again. So yeah, this is like another progression, and then I've got the waves in the sky as the clouds, and then I'm still doing like that drippy background that I did initially, like in the very beginning, like there and there and there. And then this was sort of, call it like another second era, because now I'm getting really crazy with the big brush. It's all about the big brush for me, I guess. And I added another couple galleries on at this point, and I'm going like, okay, what is making my work different from everybody else's? I'd say it's like pretty impressionistic. We're like kind of touching like abstraction versus like realism. We're on like the fence there, so I'm trying to always like straddle that and figure out a cool way to kind of depict, like, you know what it is, but there's always a flow. There's always like an artistic like take on what's happening to like this like landscape that's very like standard. Yeah, so this is process. I start my backgrounds, this is like a very recent piece. I'll go in with like, in this one, the blue in the back, let it dry totally. And then the background is like, it's a mix of like allowing one layer to dry totally and then sometimes going in when something's wet. And that gives a totally different effect. So the blue, I wanted it to just be clean and blue. And then I went in with the big brush and did like the really like fuchsia orange pops of color. And then I think I looked at that and thought, oh my God, like it's screaming at me, it's too much, I'll add some like white. And I did that while it was wet, so you kind of get this like more streaky, and like it feels like it's locked into the piece more. But if I did the whole thing like this, it looks really mucky really quick, like it just looks like a little muddy mess. But like if you have clean areas and then like these distinct waves and then these blended ones, it's like you want a little bit of everything. And again, rule of threes, I usually go into the background 3 times and then I feel like that's probably done. Then I'll do like a sketch of the mountain on top, like how that's gonna look. And I'll use the colors that I think I'm gonna use in the end, but usually I end up going over that like 2 or 3 times. And then it gets to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm happy with the composition. And then I just went in and like, this is like stage 2. And then I'm adding like, this is also like better lighting because it's the final picture, I took it outside. But there's highlights, and then I added like darker bits, and you just start like going, where is it gonna like really pop and sing, and then like where is it gonna stay muted. And I'm really noticing lately in my process, I'm really liking these like muted like grays and finding like good grays and good browns that like make the other colors look great is like huge. Because if it's all vibrant, it ends up looking like a rainbow painting, and that's like the first sign I think of like, just like you're just starting if you're doing rainbow paintings, right? Another piece I thought I'd show, just a waterfall because it's different. I used a big brush, but I just did a lot of blending with the water. And then I went in with the same thing, and I don't have a picture, but I did the big brush for the backs of the waterfall, just like white streaky. And then with this, like really blended, it's blended and then it's not blended, and it's like a very, you have to be careful about like how to make it look like rocks, and like when to blend and when not to blend. That's like a huge thing I'm always trying to like get better at when I work. But it kind of works like a printer. Like I kind of go like top corner, and then I just keep going until it's done, and sometimes I'll have to go over it, but it all interlocks. So if I have to go over one spot, I usually have to go over like a huge chunk of it. So, and then again, the brush work over top with the leaves is always a fun, risky time. But I'm getting better at like fixing that too, so yeah. This is a commission I recently did, and like I've listened to my mom doing commissions, and I got like kind of a sense, but we work super differently, so no one like told me how to like go about a commission. I just have like kind of the film school background of like you present them with like a draft and they can like yes, no it. So they wanted this original horizontal piece, but like vertical. And I think initially I was like, okay, I'll just like fill in the rest on my iPad, and like this is gonna be like what the composition's gonna look like. And they were like, no, we want to see more of this rock in the front. So then it became this, and then they were like, oh, we want the mountain bigger though. So then I just like cut it out, you know, and what do I use? The standard drawing thing that's on the iPad. I just like lasso tooled and then like made it bigger. And they were happy with that one. That's the final piece. The lighting's a little blue. I think it was like kind of early in the morning when I took the picture. But I don't know, I think it worked out really well. And you can notice like there's a little bit more of a blue cast on it, and it's like, them's the breaks. Like things can't look exactly the same, but they're super happy with it. And then I just thought I'd show these sort of key moments of the evolution. Like look, like this to this to this is like so different, and like I'm sure you see in your work already. Like also just like having to make like landscapes for work has really made it like a fast track to developing a style, because I'm like, I have to stay within these parameters, and like so it will just force me to change and get better. Yeah, a little slide about being disciplined. I'm really like into all these like YouTube podcasts about like people just like motivational getting better. I love the Robert Greene books, which I know are a little controversial, but if you just, they're not literal. You're not reading them to like manipulate anybody. You're reading them to realize like how the world works. So it's my little thing about that. Rick Rubin's book is so good. He's really coming from like the creative process and putting that like paramount to like selling. Like I think he says in there like don't make anything to sell. So like take that with a grain of salt, but I think the like how to prepare yourself to create, all that stuff's very good in there. I'm really into Diary of a CEO. It's like my latest podcast I like. And that's just like listening to people who are like doing well in life. Doesn't matter if they're artists or comedians or actors, like just listen to how they like start their days and like what parameters they give themselves to like live and how they schedule their day. Like that's what you want to head towards. And especially since painting is so solitary, like I don't have a lot to model myself after, like what I see in the world. And a lot of people think like a painter's life is pretty mysterious because we just like, there's not that many like full-time painters, right? So there's a lot of good resources out there to kind of inspire you. Yeah, no one's gonna hand anything to you. You have to like email the gallery, you have to go in, you have to introduce yourself. Like as much as my mom was a painter, she like knew what I had to do, but no gallery would have accepted me just because I'm her daughter. Like, I have to like make work that's gonna sell, and I couldn't make the same kind of work that she makes because like they have that. Like, when you're looking at a gallery, look at what they're selling. Is it like kind of what you're doing, but you're filling a gap for them in like what they have that they're offering? It's got to make sense for them, like business wise. And then you should know, like, if you're already in a gallery, like how much you sold and like how many paintings per year. And then you tell the next one, oh, I sold, 18 paintings last year. And they're like, oh my God, okay, great. Then we'll definitely take you on, because they want to make money. Like, we love what we do, but that's their bottom line. They got to keep their doors open. Yeah, regular hours. Obviously it's nice because you can be a little loose. So like if I have like an event to go to, or like I was at like Fan Expo the other day, I can be like, oh, I can just like take the day off, but I have to make that day up. So I'm always in the studio like 5 days a week for sure. Those 5 days can kind of move around. And then, yeah, just keeping myself on that schedule for sure. I bike to the studio, I go to yoga. You don't have healthcare when you're self-employed, so you gotta like make sure you're going to the dentist, make sure you're taking care of yourself. Like, no one is gonna like shake you and go like, go get a massage, or like go like take care of yourself. Like, you have to do that. And my mom, when we were growing up, I was just saying to Chris, like, she wouldn't ski because she's like, if I break my wrists, we lose our house, because like she can't make pottery if her wrist is broken. So it's just, yeah, you just got to be disciplined about that stuff. Yeah, I kind of already said diversify your interests so that you take a little bit from everybody successful that like speaks to you. Find your own people, of course. Painting is made for introverts. If you're not an introvert, that's fine. I'm sure you can like find a community or a circle or something, but like, painting works for me because it's so tailored to who I am as a person. I would say like a huge thing is like figure out who you are, what you're good at, and then like lean into whatever that is. Because the more you try to beat against something you're not, you're just gonna like be like running up to a wall all the time. Like, really try to figure out, like, even when you're making your style, like even when I draw, I tend to like do really wavy, bubbly letters if I write. And then I do wave painting. So like, look at all the aspects of yourself and like what comes out, and then like mold that. Yeah, everybody thinks like painting is like, oh, you don't have to adhere to a schedule. It is hard, and you have to like, I think it's the easiest thing to do. It's like one of the harder things to do well, right? So it's not an easy career path. Like, don't choose it if you're like, I don't know what I'll do art. Like, you got to be like really like into the hustle for the first bit anyway, and then it gets easier like a game. Game's first level, you're like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't have the tools, and then by the end you're like OP. So I'm not there yet, I don't know OP yet. Yeah, I think this Venn diagram is what I always think of in my head. It's like just a visual representation of how to be fulfilled, and yeah, enjoy what you make, what sells. There's a sweet spot in the middle, you gotta find that. Yeah, the target audience. So when I graduated university, there were a lot of options open to me. Tattooing just was starting to be massive. And of course, all my cool friends are tattoo artists, but like, it's so saturated now. Like, it's fine if you're doing it on the side. I think most people I know do it on the side. Or you have to be like the best tattoo artist at whatever you do. So just like know it, or like, I'm a nerd and I wanted to paint like demons and dinosaurs, but like, what am I gonna do? Like, make little stickers to sell at like East Side Flea or something? Like, you're not gonna make a living at that. So just like the diagram. Think about the diagram. My mom always says you have to be the best or be the most original. So it's just a really easy rule. You could be the best at representational farmhouses, and then you got that market locked in. But someone could come and then be a little bit better than you. Whereas if you're got your own style and you're like the most original at your style, no one can take that from you. And that's why I don't feel like showing you guys my process. I don't care. Like, try to do it, try to copy me. I tried to copy Kim Dorland in the beginning. Like, and then I found something out of that was mine. Like, you're just never gonna be able to get someone's style totally, so you're gonna find yourself along the way. It's okay if it's a hobby. If you just want to, I have like other things that I do for hobbies, and I'm so grateful for those things. So I don't know, just you can make that distinction. I have a Instagram, social media. I don't know if it like, I've sold like a few things through that. Not recently though. I think it's mostly the galleries. And then even if it's through social media, you have to ask like, which gallery did you find me in? Because that's like who like they saw it through, and you have to sell through them. Is it worth it? Sorry. A little typo. I don't know if it's worth it. I think maybe for brand deals, if you want to like collab in the future, that's like a good reason to be on Instagram and have a big following. It's not like a gallery's gonna look at your Instagram and go like, oh, you have 10,000 followers, we'll take you on. No, it's way more about like your sales and like how long you've been painting and your name. So it's an old school kind of world, in my opinion. I love this Instagram guy. It's like a lot about like art and motivation and creative process. So yeah, it's just fun. And that is it. And I went longer than last time, so did more of the hour anyway. Thank you.
So turn over to you, like anything that you want to learn, like Tess is here from Vancouver to talk to you, so.
Yeah.
Yes.
I wrote down a few questions.
Oh, good.
How do you calculate your price? Because I've looked up like things on Google and different ways people do it. Some people go by like time or like materials and stuff like that. Like, how do you do that for your stuff?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's so nebulous when you're starting. I didn't even think about pricing, and then I got into the first gallery and he gave me the price he thought would work for me, and I totally listened to him and didn't even like, I was just so grateful to get into a gallery. I was like, I'll do whatever, I'll give you them for free, I don't know. But yeah, it was definitely on like the lower, it's priced per square inch. And then it was on like the lower end of what he's selling, because you're a new artist. So like, that's what I went by. I'd say it depends a lot where you're selling, but then it's also important to have like, you have to be the same everywhere. Just think about where you're gonna be selling the most and look at who else is selling, and then try like anything, like if you're selling t-shirts, that person over there is selling t-shirts for $15, okay, mine are a little bit better, I'm gonna maybe put them at 20. You know, it's just like, has a lot to do with, I think, where.
Okay.
Yeah, it really is establishing a square inch price for it, which is why the big paintings cost more, smaller paintings cost less. And it really is, and you can actually have a formula attached to it, and galleries will do this, but they'll also defer to you for pricing, like, hey, what do you want to sell this for? And as long as you're kind of within it, like generally, you know, time is a factor, but it's not the only factor. You can go, this one took 100 hours, this one took 40 hours, I'm gonna charge more for this one. Unfortunately, your time isn't necessarily attached to each piece, because you can't have, this one's a 4x6, and I want this for it, and this one's also a 4x6, but took less time, but I'm gonna chop it in half, because you have to be consistent with your pricing and across the board. Because when people invest in you as an artist, and that's what they think they're doing, it's like, I want Tess to succeed, I'm gonna buy your work, and I'm gonna follow you, and then maybe I'll buy another piece down the road. So they wanna see, that you're willing to continue to do what you do. And I don't know if you found that too, but when you talk to people, or have you talked to a lot of people that buy your work, or from the galleries, or?
I mean, the galleries tell me about them.
Yeah.
But what do you mean in like?
Oh, just in terms of like the motivation. Like every once in a while, people come and you show up to an opening. Openings generally don't sell work. It's a lot of socializing, and people either buy it before or after. But it is an opportunity for you to tell your story. Like, and that's also kind of where I see the benefit of social media. It's like you can use it to tell your story. Galleries will go there, but you're right. It's not a marketplace. It's kind of part of what your careers has to have is presence, and you're the manager of that. So website is your portfolio, Instagram or any sort of social is kind of the check-in, the day-to-day, and it shouldn't be your portfolio. It should be kind of like an accessible platform in that way.
It's like a little like clickbaity thing to go, ooh, I like these colors, I'm gonna go to her website and check it out. But yeah, consistency in pricing. But yeah, when you're first starting out, it's so hard. So I just like let them figure it out. And then now I am like the master of that. And I like went to one of my galleries who's like good with the not algorithm, but like whatever, the math to figure out price per square inch. And we figured that out last year because I increased them every year. I have so far. I don't know if I will, but like with inflation, you want to increase. So yeah, has to be consistent, but then figuring out that first bit is just, I think it depends on where you're showing. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's one of the things, like, being a student, it's very difficult to price work because the formulas don't apply.
Yeah.
The second you're outside of an institution that doesn't have this as a support system or feel that you're part of it, and you're on your own, then that's kind of where the first kickoff, like Tess says, it starts and then it starts to build. And an expectation, you're always increasing prices too.
Yeah, because I mean, ideally, art is an investment like a stock or something, and like if one of us ends up being the next Gordon Smith or something, when we die, our paintings would be worth like tens of millions or tens of thousands of dollars. So, like, rare if that happens, but that's like you get a nice piece of art, but then there's that investor side too to it. So, yeah.
And people do look at it that way. Yeah.
How much, on average, do your pieces take to do?
Yeah, oh yeah, that's good. I wanted to mention that. It can take, if it goes really well, like maybe 3 days or 4 days is the fastest. I'm getting faster as I go because I'm just getting better about it. Like I think Picasso like did a little sketch and like, I don't know, there's some story about him just like doing a little thing and then it was worth like thousands of dollars, and it's like, that took you 5 minutes, and he's like, no, it took me like 50 years. So like the amount of time gets actually shorter the better you get, but like you're pricing for all the years of like toiling. Like in the beginning, like they took me probably 1 to 2 weeks each piece, and that's still, I guess, considered quick, but I'd be in there like every day, like working on a piece. It's not like after work, right? So yeah, now, short answer, now it's like on a good day 3 days, maybe a week would be the longest.
Do you work on multiples at a time, or do you just focus on one?
I don't love to do that. I like to be really locked into like my color palette and everything I'm doing on one, but sometimes if I'm like in a crunch, I'll definitely like have 2 only at max. Yeah.
What's a studio session for you? How long are you in that?
I'm like 4 to 6. Honestly, it varies so much. Like some days I'll just do backgrounds and I'll be in there for 4 hours because like it's a lot of drying time, and I'll do a couple backgrounds, and then I gotta go, okay, that's all I can do for today, and I'll do some grunt work. Like maybe it's like re-stapling something, or but some days I just lock in and then I'm there for like 8 hours and I forget what's going on, and flow state and all that. So very, I find like just keeping the, like, if I have to go to the gallery, step foot in the gallery 5 times a week, it'll get done. Because I'll once you get there is the hardest part, and then once I'm there, I'm like, okay, I gotta do something.
So how many pieces are floating around your studio before they go out the door?
It's pretty small studio, so like between 3 and 5. Yeah, at the most I'll have like 5 finished pieces there. And then they'll ship them off somewhere and get new ones in, and it's just a cycle.
Talk about the shipping aspect of the business.
Shipping sucks. Shipping is one of the things where you're like, oh yeah, this is I'm running a small business. You just talk to someone, I guess, when you hit a shipping point, because I just like, I ask my galleries for their courier services or who they ship with. Like, you can always ask your gallery to like help with like the logistics or how they do it, but yeah, I just pack them all up in the studio, put them in like it's called like a China box, because they're like the tall shipping boxes, and oh my god, they're so like ramshackle, like patchwork together sometimes, because things are just like weird sizes, and you do your best, and then you put a lot of fragile stickers on it, but there's a lot of grunt work in this job. Like the actual painting is, like half of the time, and then the rest is like, oh,
And
I
shipping's a day, isn't it? It's just like, you get there and start like wrapping and packing.
It's way longer than I always think. I always like, this will take me a couple hours, and then it's, yeah, the whole day. Yeah.
And logistics too, also, usually with, you sign your contract with the gallery, and usually it's a contract says, you know, 50% is going to you, something sells, 50% goes to the gallery. You're responsible for paying for the shipping there. And if they don't sell the work, they'll ship it back to you, they're responsible for shipping back. So your upfront cost, besides all the materials, renting your space, putting the time in, you paying for shipping, and then you sit around and wait.
Yeah. Yeah, and so that's why you want to start local first, because obviously you can just get a friend with a truck to help you drive the stuff down, and then it's all about like trying to cut around the cost, like not in the work, but in the like all the things around the work, and try to make that like, but like I live in a tiny little basement suite still, because I just can't bring myself to like pay more rent, but that was huge in like helping me start, because I just I painted in there first too during COVID. I was painting in my little basement suite, and it's like 300 square feet or something. Like it was actually ridiculous, but you got to make your kitchen your workspace, and then do that for like a year or two, and then you'll get to the point where you have a studio one day and you'll be like, oh my god, this is great, and then you'll want a bigger studio, and yeah, it'll just get bigger. You have more questions? Yeah.
Yes. What is your opinion on like prints? Because do you hand paint each time it sells?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was something that I was trying to figure out like right early on, because I get DMs in my Instagram all the time for prints. It's really expensive to make a nice quality print. You need it like professionally. I can't just take it with my DSLR. Like you need to like bring it to a photographer, have them professionally, like if they're doing it properly, it would be like pictures like that, like this, that they would stitch together, because it has to be really high resolution. And then the printing and the ink, and by the time you get it there, it's like my pieces started at maybe like $3,000 for a piece, and then the print was gonna cost $1,500 or something. So like, doesn't make sense. Yeah. So you just have to weigh that like that value when you start. But if you're doing small ones and you're just like, oh, I want this to be available on like Society 6 or one of those like print, like maybe that's a good idea. But my galleries kind of advise against it, and I agree with them. It's kind of something you want to get into when you're like down the line, is my opinion.
Yeah, but also too, just as a most galleries don't do no prints.
Yeah.
It's just kind of, even if you're a photographer, your piece is the photograph. It's not a supplement to the photograph. It's not a derivative of a photograph. And most people, if they're buying original, they don't want to see, I own the painting, and then you've got like the print over here. So most people, when they're dealing in fine art, they're dealing with unique original things. It's kind of part of like to be a print artist, like, hey, I'm in the print studio producing something, that's related, that's the art form. But to be a painter and then producing prints from that's not a strictly printmaking process. It's kind of looked at as a bit of a derivative and doesn't really have anything outside of a curiosity attached to it. And like you said, if you're signing off on it saying, hey, this has to be good quality because this is something that I'm putting into the world, then yeah, it's gonna cost you almost as much to produce something.
Yeah, your hard costs are going to be more for the print than they would have been for the painting, because yeah, so it's just doesn't really make sense.
And you got to frame the print.
Well, I don't know, or you could give it in the little thing. I don't know.
You got to frame the print.
Yeah. You have to kind of like have your little money cap on and go like, if it's going to cost me this much, what am I going to get in return? Like, you know. Yeah.
That's one thing that we did put into, and again, that's a good follow-up to what you're gonna be doing next week for me. You notice that I put a budget item in there? Again, one of the things that you don't hear in an art school is, if you decide to be an artist, you're your own business. You're a sole proprietor of you. So if you're making something, you gotta figure out the cost of these things. You gotta figure out, okay, what is your time worth? What can you produce? What are you doing? What is this gonna cost you to be involved in this? So this is kind of like the real kind of check. Go, hey, know that yes, you can buy your paints, which is why I put kits together that you can always use. It's not a one-off. But when you have paints, right? Like, how much material do you go through in your studio?
And it's another thing that like my mom goes through a lot of paint because she's very impasto. and like she owns a house and like has the like capital to spend on that kind of stuff, and I actually like made my process on knowing I don't want to spend a lot of money on paint. So I actually like, not that I like water them down a little bit so that they're just easier to blend, but then I'm also in the back of my mind thinking like, oh, this is really good, I'm not using as much paint. So like just little things like that, like it's kind of always in the back of my head, and not that I like paint like that for that reason, but I'm like bonus, you know, if it's gonna save you money. Or go to the dollar store, buy dollar store things. Like, unless you're like doing really fine blending, then you wanna buy a good brush, but if you're just scraping some stuff on, do cheap.
What's the most expense you have in your studio practice? Paints, canvas?
Oh, well, yeah, canvas. I mean, like, I get them. I realized when I started making stuff and I didn't get the stock canvases, I just got like reams of canvas to like constantly like put on the frames. I prefer when it's rougher, so I just do like canvas, a layer of gesso, and it's still got that grit, and then it like grabs the paint better for me. And so I get all my canvases custom because I don't want that like at Opus, like if you just buy the pre-made stuff, they do 3 layers of gesso and they sand it down so it's really smooth, and I just like, it looks really streaky if I do what I do on that. So I now have to get these kind of more expensive canvases, but that's another, yeah, I just figured out that that's what I liked, and but it's cheaper if you're making your own canvases anyway, so yeah. Oh, what's the most expensive thing?
No, I think just a bit of follow-up. So,
Yeah.
like, obviously you've had experience buying pre-stretched canvases.
Yeah.
And then also making your own.
Yeah.
What would you kind of estimate the cost savings between making your own versus buying?
Oh, I haven't made it from like, I've always like bought it with canvas on it, and then if I mess up, then I'll take it off and put it back on, but I've never just like bought the wood and bought
Yeah,
the-
well, yeah, your studio doesn't have a workshop space.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of limiting.
Yeah, I think like, my canvases are usually like $200-ish, cause they're big. But then like brushes and paint and stuff, like my big flat brush is like $70, I wanna say, and I wasn't taking care of them. Like now I put hair conditioner, like Tresemme hair conditioner on them at the end of each day, cause they were getting really dried out. And I thought, oh, it works for my hair, cause it's probably gonna work for the brushes.
Well, for you.
And you just have to remember to wash it off before you use it the next day, but like, that's worked really well, and I've been able to keep brushes a lot longer, so, yeah. And then the paint is Opus, I use Opus, student grade paint, and I think that's fine, yeah.
Are there challenges with light fastness when it comes to student grade?
Sorry, are there,
paints? Like, for light fastness, are you ever concerned about, like, I don't know.
like, light fastness?
I think with the process, it's because you're abstract, you don't really require that degree of technical aspect. It just needs to be a thing.
I actually didn't go to like proper painting school, so
Sorry,
I
so
don't
just
know a lot
if
about it.
If a piece is exposed to light,
Oh,
over time it.
so I spray on a UV varnish at the end.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that's got the UV protection, and it's like, I use golden actually of the varnish because it's just like better, and I can tell that there's a difference. So yeah, spray it at the
The
end.
UVLs kind of, use that one or which one do you use?
It's like just the golden, glossy, like varnish. I don't know what it's called, but
Does it come in the can?
Yeah, and the spray can.
Okay, yeah, you can get that version too.
Yeah.
Okay. So I do brush on varnish because I'm a bit more like, I'll thin it out and just kind of, it's gotta be this consistency.
Well, you're already working with oil, so you're like in that world, whereas I'm like, I just want to spray it on and not like do anything.
Toxic cloud.
Yeah. Oh my god, at my studio there was an issue where like you can't spray inside, and I did, and then everybody like had an issue with me. So someone gave me like an exhaust fan, and then I spray them always outside now. So like, yeah, when you get into a studio, just be mindful of your other people smelling your fumes. Yeah, I don't know.
The intervention, the the community knocked on your door and said, Tess.
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is
they're
not
like,
that.
this is not gonna work. I'm like, oh my god, I'm sorry, I didn't realize. Cause like, you get like a little bit I was like a little high, I was like, you get asphyxiated a little bit by the stuff, and I didn't notice as much, and then you go outside and you come back in, you're like, oh, I really messed up, so. Anyway, we'll get over those little humps, yeah.
Do you think, cause some people sell their art like through like Etsy and stuff like
Yeah.
that, or have their own like personal way of selling and stuff like that? Do you know, or would you say there's a difference, or what is the difference?
That's
Is there
like-
any benefit?
A good question that I should have gone over. So the things that you're missing out when, okay, so you're getting 100% of the sales when you're selling by yourself, and that is the bonus. You can't really justify a big price tag when you're selling by yourself because people, like, the galleries are reputation, like that's what they're giving you. And they have services where they'll hang it in your place and try it out and stuff. I think it makes it a lot harder because you have to be consistent, and then there's not as much longevity. Like, you could have a really good flash in the pan, like maybe social media like hits for you, but then like Instagram could go away tomorrow, like, because TikTok went away for a few days, you know, and everyone's like, oh my god. So it's like relying on like social media it's just a little, I find it scary. Like, galleries, they've been around, some of them, like my Kelowna one's been there for 60 years, and like you just have longevity of your career that you're sort of guaranteed. By the time they accept you, it's not like they're gonna kick you out unless you do something like super weird. It's just like career security. Yeah, I think is the biggest thing.
Yeah, also too, it kind of gives, like, the galleries that I'm with currently, one's been around for 20 years, one's been 25. And what it does do, it gives a certain degree of validation to the fact that the work that we sell here is work that is accepted by the art world. And again, to your point, your time has a value. So you are your own business. Do you want to be your own sales force? So having partners, and again, partners in all forms, like we were just talking about accountants. So that is part of your team. Your sales is part of your team. Your social media, you might do that yourself, but it's part of your practice. So you have to kind of silo what is the things that you're willing to do that's not going to take away from you being an artist. Being a salesperson is one thing. There's people that are very good at being salespeople that have a clientele. Tess mentioned it early on too. It's like, what is your target audience? Like, what is the price point? First of all, if you were to break it down, going, okay, what do you need to live off of selling art? Reverse the process. How many pieces do I need to make? How many pieces do I need to sell? Who is going to be the person that's going to draw $6 grand, $5 grand, $4 grand, $3 grand on a painting? Is it your family and friends? Have they done it with anyone else? When you go to, you know, who's the buyer? And that's a huge separation between your immediate community versus the community that's going to be the one supporting the practice.
Yeah. I don't know anybody who can afford my paintings. I can't afford my paintings. So it's, yeah, it's a whole different, like, it's a whole different part of your brain too. Like, even the small amount of like business that we have to deal with, I find it so hard to, like, in the morning I have to like answer the emails, do the taxes, do the whatever, and then I had to go, okay, forget about all that and like have fun painting. Like, that's hard enough. And then if I had to like manage a store on Etsy or something, I don't know. So it, like, but Etsy's really good for jewelry. So like, it just, like, if you're, whatever you're doing, you know, but yeah, people are not gonna drop like $7 grand on Etsy. Unless it's like a vintage piece or something, yeah.
Yeah, and again too, art is one of those things, like, you know, for the most part, people are here because they're passionate about it. It's something that gives them, it satiates them, like, this is something that's gonna keep you going and drive you. But we're in an industry where it's not scalable. You are your own business, so what you do is going to be the product. You know, for instance, you know, lawyers, they make $300, $500 an hour depending on who they are. They can afford these things. They have offices. You know, doctors, the same thing. You specialize as a surgeon. You know, these are $500,000 a year careers. That's something it's not in the same level that most artists are working. Even if you have a successful show run or something like that, your show run is that run. Next. You know, it's very difficult to be scalable with what we do, even if you are in the business of putting something together that has a runtime. So again, I just wanna be realistic with what it is that you're doing. It's like, being a painter is some of the most satisfying things I've ever done in my life, and it's honestly one of the things that kind of keeps you kind of motivated to do more. And it can be something you do the entirety of your life. That's something else. Like most lawyers, they don't practice the entirety of their life. They tap out. Doctors tap out. Artists, we can go right up to our last days. In fact, most of them have. So that's one thing that's in our favor, is because it gives you something other than a paycheck.
I think Gordon Smith was painting in his wheelchair. It's just like, you can do it forever. Also, yeah, to your point about like working backwards, is I figured like when I started, I don't think I had a studio yet, so I was like, if I sell one painting a month, then I can live, but I'm not like eating out a lot, you know, like you like have to like, and then if I sell 2 a month, I'm actually like putting a little bit in the bank and I can maybe buy myself something, you know. So think about like your costs and like what you kind of see and the trend was I was selling like about 1 a month, so like it kind of gave me that, because there is no security in this business, which is bizarre, because you just have to be like, I don't know if I like won't sell something for maybe 4 months, like randomly. So it's like can be feast or famine sometimes.
Yeah, it also depends too on the gallery. Like, you know, Tess is like, let's add another gallery to it. Well, if you have 4 people you're working with, that's 4 opportunities to sell. Most galleries, like, if you go through the show model, right? Like, I'm gonna put an exhibition together. Those exhibitions usually with the gallery is like once every 2 years. Or you get part of a group show, or you're part of a consistent rotating hanging group of work. It just depends on the gallery model itself, because a lot of galleries, sometimes they're like, if I give over a month to one artist, that's gonna be a risk I'm taking. So versus if I have more of a group show activities, like, there's a lot of things to consider, and it's also one of the easier things to get involved with is a group show. To go, I will need a show, that kind of gets reserved a little bit more to prove it. You know, can you actually, you know, if I'm gonna turn over a Vancouver gallery, how much do you think rent is in Vancouver for a downtown Vancouver gallery? Granville, dedicated space to show your work. What do you think they pay to show your work downtown Vancouver?
I
Take
should
a crack.
probably know.
3K Vancouver rent.
That's like your average
Yeah.
apartment is 3K for
Yeah.
like a studio. and
We're
a
talking
studio.
commercial Vancouver frontage.
Yeah.
They pay sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for that space. They have to sell it. So you go in there as a business partner going, hey, I'm an artist, this is what I do. Is there a fit here for me? And some of them have employees. That's on top of the rent. And they pay their own utilities, they do their own advertisement, they do a lot of things that get built into the cost. So if you want to be part of the gallery, you have to be realistic going, hey, if I partner with this person, they're going to be giving their time and energy with the expectation that they need to put food on the table themselves as well. So it's not impossible to do. It's something that can be done. And that's the beautiful thing about art. If someone has done it, so can you. How are you going to be the person that's going to get there? You go to the studio, you do the work, you find your opportunities, and you do the work. And then when you've done the work, you do the work. And then you get better at doing the work. The only way you get better, guess what? By doing the work. You're here for the express purpose of learning what it means to be a painter. You're doing advanced painting. I'm asking you to do the work. You should be motivated by this because it's a possibility for you in the world. It's like, yeah, you can make work that you value. And that Tessa's never said anything other than do something that you value. But then be good at it. Learn something about you by doing it.
Yeah, it's you have to motivate yourself any way you can. I didn't talk on one of my slides, I put like YouTube tarot on there because I listen to this, like, tarot's nonsense, we all know this, but sometimes like he's very like motivational when he does it, and sometimes that like little motivation, I know it's like not true, it's based on like stars in the sky, but like whatever you need to like get you up in the morning and go, it's gonna work, because like there will be some dark times in the beginning when you're like trying to make rent and stuff, and then it does get easier when you like figure it out, but it's very, very hard in the beginning. Like I just don't want to undersell that. Like, yeah.
But that's also where most people give up, is
Yeah.
you give up in the beginning because it's not easy. And again, do you have any satisfaction for giving up when it's not easy? Do you get any satisfaction for, you get satisfaction by going on the journey and putting the work and getting that reward, because then it means something. You put that sacrifice in there to go, hey, yeah, I can see this being something positive in my life. I'm getting a reward for it, and knowing that I put all the effort into it.
Yeah.
So, again, that's my motivation, kind of, putting this into the world. It's not easy. You're always in competition. You're always looking for your opportunities. Like you said, if you go into a gallery and someone's painting the same thing that you're painting, you're
You
not
are
getting
out
that
of
space.
luck. Yeah, you gotta figure out something else to do. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just so interested in the, actually, you can go back to the
Sure.
slides when you had like your 3 paintings from different
Oh,
points.
yeah.
I'm just so interested in that like progression of your style
Mhm.
and kind of thing. I guess I'm not really asking a question, but I just want to hear more about it and how you like found that, and you felt like at first you were kind of trying to maybe not copy but take inspiration from
Oh,
what came,
yeah.
but then you really found kind of your thing, or anyway, I'm just
Sure.
fascinated kind of by that process.
I'll go back to like the early there. Okay, so yeah, you see this Kim Rowland piece, how it's like very like almost cartoony and like the scale is really big. So I took a lot of that sort of like graphic representation and like the scale, the bright colors, like I tried to take all the elements I could from him and try to like make it my own. So yeah, I think I don't even, it's so funny, it was so long ago, I'm like, how did I even make these? And how did I decide on this? It's just like, I was just like throwing stuff at the wall and like seeing what stuck. And then I don't even know, like I made the red one and I showed it to my mom, and we're so lucky we have each other. Like it's so good to have like a friend or someone else who's as serious as you, because we give critiques to each other. Like I call her every morning and she shows me what she's working on and I show her what I'm working on, and we're really good at critiquing. So she really liked the red piece and I wasn't sure about the red piece, and she's like, no, that's a great one, like submit that. And I was like, okay, I don't know, but like, sometimes you need that like perspective of someone you really trust.
It's actually a really good point too. It's do studio visits. Like, go, first of all, for lack of a better word, network. Go visit artists, go see shows that you like. From there, talk to people. Ask for a studio visit.
And it's,
That
yeah,
happens, yeah.
that's how we like got to know each other. And it is so rare, I think, that you find someone that clicks with you on that level too. And like maybe their work is totally different than yours too, but your process is very similar. Or you like the same like TV show or game, or like it's not even art related, but you get on for some other reason, and then like, yeah, someone you respect the opinion of is huge.
Yeah, to your point, most of the art community is fairly introverted.
Yeah.
People that are comfortable being by themselves in a space creating for hours on end. It's just something that fuels them. But then also you kind of need a little bit of a reality check by
Yes.
talking with other people doing the same thing that you are, and it becomes kind of part of a bit of a community. Like you need a community. It's not isolation for the sake of isolation. It's
Mhm.
isolation in the sense of this is who you are, this is how you work. But then also you're interested in how the world is operating that's also working the same way you work. And so networking is extremely important. Go look at art, go visit people, meet someone that you're kind of interested in, just even, the fact that they're in the same world and the same kind of process that you're going through. It's a way to, commiserate in some respects.
So it's a lot of commiserating. But yeah, I have to push myself to like go to openings and go meet people, because I do not naturally want to do that at all. So that's like very hard for me, and I'm sure it's hard for a lot of people in this room too. So you there's no like way around it. You just have to like force yourself to go and say.
And then they become obligated. Like,
Yeah.
I think going to your opening, I'm like, hey, you gotta come.
Yeah. No, well, it's good though. But yeah, I mean, I remember I did all these different trees, and then I was in Ian's gallery at the time. He goes, "Oh, the trees are different," and I'm like, They are, because Kim Dorland does his trees all different, and that's why I do mine all different. So there's a lot of like ripping off of text. Steal Like an Artist, there's that book I have. I don't know if you guys know that book, but it's fine. Everything is like a remix. Like, as long as you're not like perfectly copying, like, take little things, who cares? Like, and I got compared to like, I don't know, a group of 7 artists too, like, not so much these, I guess, when I was doing more of the blending stuff, but everyone will always be like, oh, you kind of look like this artist, or oh, and like, whatever, I don't know, you're doing your own thing. Yeah, I think I'm trying to figure out like a way to be like, it's kind of like, I feel like you'll hit a wall with your style where something is just like feels stale, or you'll feel like if you don't get excited to go work on the piece you're working on, that's a huge sign of I need to change something, I need to pick a new brush, I need to try a different like kind of medium, because you need to be, you can tell if you're not excited in the work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, me? Okay. I don't know how to word this question, but you mentioned like submitting like a series.
Yeah.
To galleries and stuff like that. Do they, if you want to create a new series, do you have to resubmit that? Do they like welcome your new series because you're there? Or do you like resubmit to a different gallery with a new series? Like, how do you do like new stuff all the time?
Yeah, you shouldn't be really reinventing the wheel all the time, I would say. Like, if you're finding your style, like, once I got into a gallery with this work, I wouldn't give him like portraits or something, because that would just be like kind of too out there. But you can, it's all about kind of like trying to like move subtly into like, maybe I can put the, like, if you really want to do portraiture, I don't know, like put the back of a silhouette in or something, or like, you gotta be sneaky about it and like figure out like how to kind of convince them of it. I'm sure you could show them the work, and then like if they're blown away, then they're blown away. But it's a balance. You can't, I would just say like you can't do like a 180. Like, if they've accepted you, they've accepted you for a certain kind of work, and they're probably expecting that you can be with them for a few years, like, and grow upon that style that you've submitted. Like, yeah. Also, I'm very like guilty of like starting things and stopping them, and I think it's a really good thing for me to have to like stick to something, because I just tend to want to like, I'll just start like a new project all the time, and I think that's a very like creative brain to do that. But if you have to push through those like kind of stuff and figure out, okay, what in this can I like it again? How can I like it again? Yeah, I don't know, how would you like?
I'm also kind of to the original point. A gallery is a relationship.
Yeah.
And it is a supportive relationship. So it's also, you know, your business partners together. So the communication's big, and talking about direction, like even trying out an idea on them and just kind of getting some feedback, or you do something, and to the point, like how many pieces would you say you produce in a year?
I want to say 20 to 30.
Okay, so it's like a couple a month.
Yeah.
Okay, once every couple weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a pretty ambitious production schedule. If I held you to that schedule, going, okay, as advanced painters, we have a 13-week course. Every 2 weeks, I want you to produce
like one that's ready to be sold.
one that's already used a 4x6 canvas. How many people would continue taking this course? Break it down every 2 weeks. That is approximately 7 paintings. Call it 6 paintings for the sake of first week. 6 large-scale paintings done at a level that would be absolutely critique, bulletproof, don't need to go back in, ready for showing. And the reality is, that's what it takes to be an artist, is you have to produce at a schedule. And let's just say, let's do the math one more time here, okay? You produce 20 pieces on the high side. Let's just say you start off like 20 pieces at $3,000 a piece, right? Your first level. Do some math on it, you just got a cell phone.
7 grand.
We're gonna get there, we're gonna do the math together here. Okay, half of $3,000, because again, half goes to the gallery, half goes towards you, what is that? 1,500 times 20. Okay, now let's take away your costs. Let's say your costs are 25% less. Yeah. Okay, approximately. Oh, taxes.
Taxes.
Oh, government loves that money. You're self-employed. You are just, you get write-offs, but you also get to pay taxes on that as well. So my point being is you have to kind of work yourself in a position. This is not a career that happens day one. This is a career that you get to, which is also why it's important that you're able to raise your prices to cover the costs of the expenses attached to it. A lot of other artists, you know, outside, and this is why Tessa's kind of, you know, an exception in that this is a career. This is something that becomes, you know what's at stake.
Yeah.
But you grew up with what's at stake.
Yeah, I'm ready to get a serving job next month, like all the time, kind of. Like I have that in the back of my head and like haven't gotten there. But that's always the thing is like I may have to go like to the bar and get a job because like who knows? Like I've gotten to a place where it is more consistent and it is easier to sleep at night, but I'm not going to Japan. Like all my friends have like been to Japan and I'm like, yeah, I've been building my business. So, yeah.
So to that point is, and this is where math is kind of your friend, and I know even drawing a grid, I get a lot of eye rolls or, oh, we need to do something like a chart. Get a lot of eye rolls, it's math. Unfortunately, it's part of the brain that you have to utilize as an artist to do the business side of the equation. You're all creative people, that's why you're here. You all want to be, you know, better at what it is that you do, which is why you practice. So, but to have a realistic expectation of what it is that you do, this is the commercial side of it. Do you want to be even kind of more scared? Okay. The private or the public side, where you get a show, say at the Reach Gallery Museum. How much do you get for a card back fee to show at the museum for one show?
How much do you get for what?
Okay. Solo show at a museum.
For what?
For a show, you get a fee,
Oh.
right? So if you want to be an artist that's not represented by galleries, that has, I'm just going to show at public venues, I'm going to get my grants, I'm going to get my show for them. How many people are taking professional practices, or should be taking professional practices? Okay, you should know this answer, right? So you're putting practice together, you're applying for grants for the show that you're doing, and the fee is also going to be part of it. It's generally, like, at most $3,000 for a year's worth of work or whatever you put together for an exhibition. And guess what? Once that work goes to be shown in a public space, it's already been shown. Commercial galleries don't want it. That's one thing that's also kind of like the gross thing about being an artist is you have a window on that work. So the work has a best before date. You know, you don't go, hey, I did this painting like 5 years ago, you want to show it? The answer is no.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you doing now? It's always kind of, what are you doing next? What have you done for me lately? It's a very kind of brutal world that way, which is why you want to have outlets for work. Case in point, I'm showing my work in Calgary in a couple weeks. Part of that show came from a Vancouver show. It's very rare, but I'm also supplementing it with brand new pieces. So they get new work, but they get some work that didn't quite do well in a certain location. That is freaking rare, but it's able to do it. So that's kind of like a little cheat show. It's like half New York, half old. And for me, I'm like kind of like giddy. I'm like, don't tell them. But you know, you always have to kind of find your opportunities and be creative. And then you get dead stock. You get art that's going to go back to the studio and get stored and gets mothballed, and you pull it out and go, oh, I don't do that anymore. So it's a tough thing.
This is like important too. Like not every painting that goes to gallery sells, and the ratio of that has gotten better as I've grown. But in the beginning, you know, I've heard about artists getting their pieces back, like because our gallery wants you to take them back and they're crying. Like you have to like separate yourself a little bit when it's done and go like, this is something to sell, and it's not my, like it is your soul and your reason to live, but like they're seeing it as like a product to sell, and just like you gotta like toughen up a little bit with that stuff. Like if they give it back to you, you gotta go, okay, how can I get better? I asked them even, like, what didn't people like about this when they saw it? Oh, I was using like fluorescents because Kim Dorland used fluorescents, and then I had a gallery saying no one wants to buy fluorescents because like they don't age well and people have a hard time putting them in their home. So like, yeah, it's good to like get that critique and don't take it personally, even though it is personal, but yeah.
Yeah, and painting has stale dates. Stale dates probably about a couple of years. If there's a really exceptional piece and the gallery still wants to want it because they absolutely believe in it, they've had, you know, enough interest in it that they want to kind of keep it, that happens too. So, again, not to discourage you, because I think this is something that is, it's unlike anything else. Because, you know, you are ultimately going to be the person that is going to realize the success of your own efforts. Name something else that exists that way. It's difficult. Cool. Let's well, first again, just want to thank Tess for again being candid, giving you the inside baseball, which is kind of why I wanted Tess to come here and speak, because you know you can listen to me, someone who's been kind of mid